pysanky are one of the most recognizable symbols from the Ukrainian culture. Visitors to our museum often ask, how are they made? Today I'm going to show you how to turn a plain white egg into a beautiful pysanky. So to make our pysanky, we're actually going to use a raw egg. The reason why we're doing this is because we want to be able to keep this pysanky when we're finished with it. And if we hard-boiled it before we decorated it, we wouldn't be able to keep it for years and years and pass it on through all the generations of our family. So we're using a raw egg. Before we start making our pysanky, we do need to wash the eggs. So you want to just give them a rinse with some water and some vinegar. You also want to make sure that your hands are nice and clean. So a good scrub with your hands, because you don't want any of the oils or lotions that you might have on your skin getting onto the egg. That is going to affect how the egg takes the dye. Now, we're also using a raw egg so we can preserve it forever. At the end, when I'm finished with my pysanky, I'll tell you how you can do that. One of the tools that we use to make pysanky is called a kystka. This is a stylus which has a little metal cup on the end of it. We're going to heat this metal cup in a candle and then melt a little bit of beeswax into that cup. The melted beeswax is going to come out of that point on the bottom of the kystka, and this is going to serve as essentially our ink that we're going to put our designs on the egg with. So now that our kystka is warm and full of wax, I'm ready to actually start putting lines on my pysanky. The first line that I'm going to put on my egg is an unbroken line that's going to go all the way around the egg. It has no beginning and no end. This line just keeps going on forever and ever and ever, and it represents the eternity of life. Everywhere I'm putting wax on my pysanky is actually going to be protected from the dye. So this technique is a wax resist dyeing technique. As we go through all the different colors of dye, it won't touch the egg wherever there's wax. All right, so now that I've finished applying all the lines I want on my white egg, I'm ready to start dyeing. When we dye our pysanky, we go from lightest to darkest. So we've started with the white egg. Now I'm going to put it into the yellow dye and let that sit in the dye for a few minutes. So our egg has been in this dye for a couple of minutes now. It's taken a nice yellow color. Now, these dyes that we're using today are just a commercial egg dye that you can buy even at our gift shop here at the museum, but historically, people made dyes from natural things like flowers and plants. So to get a golden yellow color, maybe not this bright, you could use onion skins or straw boiled in some water with some vinegar to make a nice natural egg dye. At this point, I'm ready to add any designs to my pysanky that I want to be yellow on the finished egg. So remember, everywhere that we put wax on the egg, that's protecting that egg from being touched by the dye. So on this egg, I think I'm going to put some little lines just along here that will appear yellow on my finished pysanky. All right, now I'm done with all the yellow parts that I want to add to my pysanky, so I'm ready to put it back into the dye. The next color that I'm going to use is orange, again, lightest to darkest. So we're going to leave that in there for a couple more minutes. All right, my egg's out of the orange dye, and I'm ready to add some more designs to it. Again, all of those other colors that we've gone through, they're still underneath that wax. So the lines that I made at the beginning are still white under there, and those little squiggles are still yellow. So now I'm going to add some orange suns to my egg. The sun can be used as a symbol of the returning sun in the springtime, because these eggs are decorated for Easter, which is happening in the springtime. A lot of symbols are celebrating that rebirth and renewal that happens in the spring. Now that we're finished with all of those suns on our orange egg, we're ready for the next color of dye. This time it's red. So now that my egg has been in this red dye for a few minutes, I'm ready to move on. Just a note, if you're doing this at home, as you do move up through the colors and you get into the darker colors, you want to leave your egg in the dye for a little bit longer so that we get a really nice, rich, dark color. You only need to have the egg in the yellow for maybe a minute or two, but you can leave it in the red or the black, the darker dyes, for much, much longer. So now at this point, I'm ready to finish up my designs. This is going to be the last color that I have to add any wax to. So I want to make sure that I have lots of designs at this point in time. So I'm going to actually take my kiska and color in these whole sections to have big red sections on my finished pysanka. So I'm just finishing up with all of the wax application on my red egg here. And as you can see, I've now covered my egg with a lot of wax so that my final pysanka has a lot of colorful designs in it. So now our last step is to dye the egg black. We need a background color to bring out all of those colors that we've gone through in our pysanka so far. So I'm going to put it into the black dye, and as I said, you often need to leave your pysanka in these darker colors a little bit longer just to make sure that you get a nice deep dark color. All right, my pysanka has been in that black dye for a few minutes now, and we're ready to finish up. Now, this pysanka probably doesn't look like you were expecting it to look. To actually reveal all those designs that we put on our pysanka, we need to melt this wax back off the egg. So to do this, we're just going to hold it up beside the candle flame. And as that wax starts to melt, you just wipe it off, and you start to see all of the colors and all of the designs underneath. All right, there's the last bit of wax off my pysanka. Now my pysanka is complete, and you can see all of those beautiful designs that I added all along the way. Now, as I said, this is a raw egg. It can be kept forever if you want to keep it like this. Some people like to blow the insides out, and then you just have the shell of the egg, and it does keep very well for you to pass down through the generations of your family. For Ukrainians, the pysanka is an important part of Easter celebrations. So pysanka are part of the Easter basket. They go to church on Easter Sunday, blessed along with all the other foods in the Easter basket. The pysanka is a very powerful symbol of cultural expression for Ukrainians, and hopefully now you can appreciate that it is more than just a pretty egg.